Mahatma Gandhi, I'm sure we know him, was one of the people that helped India to gain independence. Has a list of 7 social sins. He calls them 7 social sins. And one of these 7 social sins is religion without sacrifice. Religion without sacrifice. For Mahatma Gandhi, he was not a Christian, he was a Buddhist. It's a social sin. In the first reading of today, taken from the Book of Wisdom, the Book of Wisdom is one of the 5 sapientia books, the Book of Wisdom in the Bible, in the Catholic canon. It is not found in Protestant canon. It's one of the 7 books that are missing in the Protestant canons. So, the Book of Wisdom and the Book of Sirach, they are not found in the Protestant canon. The Book of Wisdom that we have just heard was written in the 1st century BCE, before the birth of Christ. Therefore, it was not written by Christians. It was written by Jews in Alexandria in Egypt. Alexandria was the capital of the Hellenistic world, of the Greek world of the time of Alexander the Great. So Egypt was the center of learning, of civilization, of so many things. So many people flocked to Alexandria. So a number of Jews were there, and many of them, and they were speaking Greek. So these people were living in Alexandria during this 1st century. And you know the attraction that comes from socialization, peer pressure, and so-called civilization is so great. So many of the Jews gave up their faith, and they were not practicing Judaism again. They embraced the new culture, the new life, and so they were living like others. But in spite of this, there was a remnant few who were keeping the faith. And so they were not behaving like others. And because they were not behaving like others, the people who wanted to enjoy life, who wanted to celebrate themselves, they saw them as enemies. And for this reason, they wanted to eliminate them. They tried to plot to make them suffer so that they will give up, they will be broken, and they will join them. But these people did not join them. They refused to be broken. And because they refused to be broken, sometimes they put them to shameful death because they call themselves children of God. And when you look at this context, this is the context of the first reading of today. When you look at this context, you will discover that it's very similar to what we are experiencing today in our own world. We seem to be civilized, and because of that, we go for the latest attraction. And many of us, not that we actually wanted to embrace the new culture, but so that we will not be persecuted, sometimes we give up. The first reading of today is encouraging us not to give up. There is nothing new under heaven. When the reading was going on, or when I was reflecting on the reading, what came to my mind was that this thing happens from 2,000 years ago, or 2,100 years ago. It's happening today. Today, if you stand out to want to embrace the Christian morals or values, people talk you down. And sometimes, so that people will not talk us down, we easily join them. The first reading of today is encouraging us not to give up. This is the background to the Book of Wisdom, chapter 3 and chapter 4 we usually read during funeral. After this passage, chapter 3 will begin by saying, the soul of the just is in the hand of God. and no torment can ever touch them. So let us know that as human beings, God has created us beyond this life. Even if we suffer, let us know that there's a place prepared for us where we will receive the normal and favorable justice. The second reading is taken from the letter of St. James. We have been reading from this letter of St. James for the last 3 Sundays. The letter of St. James is known as a New Testament wisdom literature. The letter of St. James is not like many of the other books in the New Testament that tell stories of some things. Rather, it is a collection of some wise sayings that could help the young Christian community of their time. And today, the reading is talking to us about how to live. That most of the times, it is the passion to satisfy ourselves that usually cause trouble. We want to impose ourselves, we want to impose our ideas on others. And because of that, we run against each other. Sometimes, what we seek is just what will give us pleasure, not something that will make us feel good. So, James wrote this letter 2,000 years ago, and the letter is still relevant again today for us, that we must live peaceably with one another. As Christians, as children of God, we should be considerate. We should think of others in our relationship. Let us not always think of myself. Let us think of others. In the gospel reading, Jesus addressed the disciples again for the second time. There are 3 passion predictions in the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke. The first one was in chapter 8 that we read last week. It's in chapter 8 in the Bible, but we read it last week. So after Peter confessed Jesus, Jesus told him, okay, you have done well, but this is my messiahship. As a child of God, as a son of God, I'm going to suffer. Peter said no. Jesus said, no, it's not only about me. Also you're going to suffer too. Today again, they went to the mountain. They just came back from the mountain, and Jesus showed them the glory, the transfiguration. And they saw it, and they came down again, and the disciples were discussing, oh my God, this is so beautiful. They saw the glory of God, and they were discussing who is the greatest among them. But Jesus saw the glory on the mountain, and he knows that to attain this glory, he must suffer. So, and Jesus was telling them about the passion. They didn't understand. They were thinking of who is the greatest. What unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. And Jesus has to take them through the lesson again that the cross is important. Suffering is important for every human being. In all of these things, what is the message for us today? The message for us today, first of all, is that there is nothing new under heaven. There's nothing new that we are passing through today. People, Christian for 2,000 years, even beyond 2,000 years, those who want to serve God, they have looked like antisocial to their society. And so, but in spite of all of these things, a few of them had remained with God. They have stood for God in spite of the changing circumstances. They didn't give in to the pressure, either social pressure or peer pressure. And so today, we too should not give in so easily to social pressure or social pressure or peer pressure. We should stand for God. We should stand out. We should know that, we should be convinced that we are on a journey, and the journey is beyond this world. In his book, Rediscovering Catholicism, Matthew Kelly, the title of the book is Rediscovering Catholicism. Matthew Kelly said that there are 3 social evils in our world today. The first one is individualism. I before others. In our society today, the individual right has been so elevated that there is no other right again. I'm the center of the universe. I call it the dictatorship of the self. Individualism is dictatorship of the self. So I am at the center of everything. We don't think of others. So Matthew Kelly said that is one of the three evils that is trending today. Everybody wants to be I, without considering others. Not just I before others, I and I alone. I, me, and myself. It's an evil that we should watch against today. The second evil that Matthew Kelly talks about is hedonism. Hedonism is pleasure in the name of freedom. Anything sensual, anything that gives me pleasure. We are not just pleasurable things. We are also spiritual. We are also spiritual. And one funny thing is that whenever we meet with obstacle like this pandemic, then we remember where is God. So as spiritual being, we know that everything should not be sensual things. We should not embrace hedonism. Hedonism is found in the first reading of today. They just want to enjoy life. And because I want to enjoy life, I must join them. Because of material benefit, I must join them. And the third evil is minimalism. Minimalism. Do the least you can and get the most advantageous position. The least for the greatest. Matthew Kelly said we should watch against these three evils. And these three evils are presented to us in the readings of today. Against it is sacrifice. We must make sacrifice. Religion without sacrifice is a social evil. As Catholics, let us be happy. Let us thank God that we are Catholics because we have the sacrifice of the Mass, where the sacrifice of Jesus Christ is enacted for us again. And because it is reenacted for us afresh every day, then He's calling us to a life of sacrifice. So as we thank God for the sacrifice of the Mass, then we too should work to make sacrifice so that we can also share in the glory of God. May God bless His words in our hearts now and forevermore. Amen.